Right, we are getting there. Just one more second. Awesome. Well, hello everyone and welcome. You're in another episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show. I'm Velin Hawkins, your host, and I'm excited about our guest today. We have been almost like long lost sisters. When we talk, the conversation can go on and on because we have so much to share between us, but we're sharing that with you today. And we're going to be talking about balancing a mindful lifestyle for sustainable weight loss. Who doesn't want that? My guest today is Karen Q. And Karen is founder of a company called Scale the Limit. She's a mindful weight loss leader, an author, a speaker, an educator, and an entrepreneur. And she has worked with people to basically reframe their whole sense of who they are because of the weight that they've been able to lose and the sense of being that they've been able to come into. And with that being said, I want to say welcome, Karen. It is so great to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much, Belin. I'm so excited to be here and I can't wait to dive into this conversation.
Oh, that makes two of us. And while we're doing that, let me just take a moment and tell you a little bit about who Karen is. I don't know if I had this slide up long enough for you to really get a sense of who Karen is, but she is founder of Scale the Limit, a mindful weight loss company, and author of The Sugar is the Devil Inspirational Cookbook. She's a businesswoman, a lifelong entrepreneur, wife, and mother, and knows firsthand the importance of living a full life, which is why she broke away from the late night, early day demands of corporate America, and that's putting it kindly, to create an enriching life on her own terms. She now uses her years of corporate and entrepreneurial expertise to help other high achieving women realize that they too can live a life of significance that doesn't require them to sacrifice themselves to find fulfillment in teaching others to, she finds fulfillment in teaching others to be successful in all that they wish to do. And without further ado, Karen, are you ready to jump into some of these questions that I have for you?
All right, what you have? What do you got? Do
All right. Well, first of all, let's kind of start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about your journey to focusing on helping women and, high-powered women with stepping into this balance of life and how we're treating ourselves and where we're taking back control of our weight. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I have struggled with my weight probably since college is where I kind of like narrow it down to with those freshman 15. And then it had just kind of been an ongoing cycle ever since then. Looking at different diets, nailing them, they work for a while and then totally failing them. And just kind of going through that cycle for years. I've done the bars and the shakes and the supplements. In fact, that was the last type of diet that I had done before I found the freedom to really eat to live instead of living to eat. I know we've all heard that before. And as I found myself back in the same spot, like I had done the bars and the shakes. I had lost 35 pounds at that point. It wasn't to my goal weight, but it was good enough. It's a significant amount. I had kept that off for 2 years. And then I made choices in my life to continue to trade myself off. And there were other priorities. And it just, almost all of that weight slipped away, except for 1 pound, Velin, because I am not a failure. I'm not a total failure.
Well, Karen, what I know about failure is that it tells a story. And it's something that if we really choose to look at it like this, it can be one of the best forward moving factors that we could have in our lives. And I loved how you said, I was nailing it and then I was failing it, but you were failing it to freedom. And I like how you brought that in. You finally found the freedom when you decided it was time to eat to live
Mhm.
versus living to eat. That's tremendous. And when I think about that, and I think that this may have been part of where you were in all of this as well, there's so many triggers, that cause women to lose a sense of their weight.
Mhm.
You mentioned, you put other priorities before you, and looking up one day and saying your weight is out of control, or it's just gone in a direction that's not healthy, and you've got some kind of ailment that's caused you to bring things back into your sphere of attention. What would you say are probably the three biggest triggers that women encounter that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think overachieving and people pleasing and like over functioning. I think that's the number one trigger that I see because we're such givers as women and we want everybody else to be happy. And then we always put ourselves last. And in putting ourselves last, we're trading ourselves off for everything else in our lives. And that's exactly what I was describing to you just a minute ago, where I was before I found this freedom, or at least I was on the path to starting to figure that out. I'd say the second biggest trigger is feeling like you're not enough. And when you feel like you're not enough, going through life not enough, it's hard to face yourself in the mirror and know that that's you. So it's so much easier to blame it on something else. So gain weight. Oh, the weight's the problem, not that I feel unworthy. And then I have shame that goes with that, and then guilt. And then it's a cycle that just goes right back into I'm not enough, right? It's so much easier to gain the weight and then be like, oh, I got to do something about it. And then you start nailing it. And then what happens? You start failing it because you have to validate the fact that you're not enough. And then there's a third category that typically has to do with a trauma. So having some kind of trauma in your life and using weight as protection. That's very, very common as well. And in fact, that's why we really do the mindful exercises that we do on our program, is to get underneath what's really going on, because your body physically won't allow you to not be protected.
Yeah, yeah. That's a subconscious mechanism. Our
Mhm.
subconscious is our protector, and you're so right. And those traumas can happen early in life, they can happen in adulthood, and it is a common response to it. But it's also something too, and I'm asking this question, do you think that coming to realize it is the first stage of being able to, I don't want to say fix it, but I will say correct it, put it on the right path. Would you say?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been doing this work, I good at like, I don't know, 12 years, I think. Something like that. And that was well before I understood, how to eat better and how to put that together with mindful exercises. But I mean, the first thing I had to do to start uncovering my pain and release myself from the things that happened growing up, right? The new word is like what happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
growing up. And then as an adult, what things did I perpetuate? And it really meant, yeah, looking in the mirror and admitting that that pain came from somewhere. And, I now have control over it. It really, it's controlling me and I'm allowing it to control me right now, but I could do something about that.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I actually do a lot of work with that too in my hypnosis practice. And, for me, it's, the trauma is probably the biggest overlay on the other two things that you mentioned, right? Part of it is conditioning. We just didn't learn how to eat right as we were growing up. And then this whole thing of not enough, something happened, the trauma happened, and then you got into the not enough, or because of how you grew up, somewhere it came in, I'm not enough. And so I'm eating in order to satisfy my I
Yeah.
am enough so I can do this. And, then but I want to be better, and not being able to find who and where the gatekeeper is that will allow you to open the door. I love the mindful exercises because they are so needed. And, what is one of your favorites? Just give us an overview of one of your favorite mindful exercises that helps people to kind of get in there and see
Well, I'll
what's
tell you, if
going
I
on.
really don't like something at the beginning, that's a sure sign. My husband will tell you that is a sure sign that I'm going to be best friends with either that person or that thing. And I will tell you, for me, meditation. When I first started meditating, it was crazy. I couldn't settle down. I thought I was doing it wrong. My perfectionist tendencies were coming back to bite me. And now I can't live without it. But you know what? There's days when, everybody thinks you have to really sit there and sit still. And then you're like, then what? And especially if you're a really busy woman, it's like you're wasting time because you're like thinking about all this other stuff that you could be doing instead of sitting there and centering yourself. And I still have days like that. But you know what? That's when I do an active meditation. That's when I go for a walk. That's when I'm, hand washing dishes, something repetitive that you can still let your brain go. And I think really what I'm doing is I'm distracting my brain, the part of my brain that can't settle down with something. Here, you do this while I get to release
I get to
the
go
rest of,
inside and
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. So Karen, much of what we understand about our weight is what we've heard, what we've learned. And some is all about the stereotypical things like, you're at an age where you're going to be putting on weight. You're a big bone woman.
Mhm.
Just look at your mom and you get a good idea of what you're going to be looking like at that age. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say anything negative or derogatory about our moms. We love our moms. And I think that we do kind of look at our moms and decide, do I want to be like my mom or not? Because we do have that power of choice. But as we move forward and look at who do I want to be, and how do I feel my best, and it's about the things that help us to lose the sense of control about our own weight journey. Do you believe that this type of conditioning plays a big part in what we live, how we eat, and thus look at our own weight because we can't get out of that conditioning cycle?
Absolutely. I mean, it comes back to what you were saying before. It's conditioned into us. So I have discovered through this process that there's generational cycles that have been going on well before our parents, into your grandparents, their parents. And I know for me, like I mentioned, one of them, perfectionism, right? So that's a problem. And when I get all into my perfectionist, idiosyncrasies, if you will, like I'm not meditating right. Right? Well, then that creates stress. I have anxiety, and what am I going to fill that anxiety with? Food is one of the things that I like to fill it with. Not anymore. I mean, I still like it. I still have the pattern there. I still go to food for that. But now I realize it, and it's about really getting to the root of the issue, because the food itself is one thing, and there's lots of different choices out there in order to control the food that you're using for medicine, for living, for sustenance. But it's really about when are you using it and what are you using it for. Other, we mentioned a couple other things. Like I grew up, results equals love, right? Which that always just leads you to, I am not enough. I am feeling unworthy, right? We mentioned some other things before, right? Overachieving, over functioning. All of this stuff we were taught from somewhere. And most likely it came from your family. And it's not just your parents and your aunts and your uncles and your cousins, it's everybody before that because it was passed down the lane. And, I chose to perpetuate a lot of these things unknowingly. But as soon as it came to my attention, I was like, oh, it's a choice. I can be intentional about allowing my perfectionist tendencies to get the best of me, or I can be like, yeah, it's good enough. Moving on.
Mhm. I love how you brought that in because the whole generational thing is so ingrained in us. My grandmother was like that, so I'm going to be like that. But sometimes you have to get to the point, especially when you recognize that it's something that either no longer serves you or that's detrimental to your health and well-being. You have
Yeah.
to decide to be the breaker of chains. And, sometimes you can do it in ways like what you were saying, bringing it to your consciousness, acknowledging it, and then saying, I'm choosing something differently. And then there's sometimes that you actually have to look at it like it's a chain and actually break the chain because some of those ties are just that deep that they talk about the three what do you call it, the three threaded um oh come on, Lynn, it's the three twined cord is not easily broken, right? If you just got one twine, you could probably break it. Even if it's two, it's just
Oh,
twisted. But
yeah.
the third is kind of plaited, so it's stronger. And there are some ties to generational habits and tendencies that come to us. And sometimes it's tough too to say, I was the one that came into this point in time to be the chain breaker, to
Yeah.
be the one that just breaks that out of our family line. And I've seen that happen. I've participated in that in my own family history. And I think that that is something that a lot of people just still are not aware of, how they're participating in the perpetuation of negative behaviors that we've been conditioned for so long.
Oh, yeah. And it's not our fault. We grew up in that environment. It's very normal. Like, it's like breathing. So, unless you're going to really be looking at it and really start keying into how you're feeling and what's triggering inside you, you're not going to find it because it's, daily, what is it? Now I'm going nuts. It's business as usual. Status quo, that was the word, right? Status
Yes,
quo. And even if it's uncomfortable at some level and you're in discomfort, you already know how to manage that discomfort. So you don't want to make it worse because
and
that's what
and
it takes. And it's in us at a cellular level. And that's why I believe meditation is so important because meditation gets us down into that cellular level, a lot like hypnosis does, the way that you with your
absolutely,
clients. Yeah.
absolutely. And so, as we learn, one of the reasons that I do this show is to have something out there that people can learn from. And as we're learning about healthier living and healthier eating, we're learning about something that you and I have talked about, real food. Um, and then I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and they were saying, well, fast food is real food. And I'm like, some people believe that. However, what's your definition of real food?
Well, let's talk about fast food for a minute because, fast food is technically real food depending on what you're choosing at the fast food restaurant. I mean, if you're going to, get the cheeseburger that has been, on somebody's shelf for the last 20 years and is still completely intact, that's processed to death. It's got to have so many chemicals in it. And then like, are we trying to preserve the inside of our bodies with that? What are we doing? Like,
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
that's your point, then maybe that is real food for you. I think you really have to decide how you want to eat. And there's so many different ways to eat, right? You can eat plant-based, you can eat low carb, you can eat low fat, you can eat, but low fat equals what? High sugar, usually. Especially with the low fat products, I've found that the sugar is always much higher in it than if you had just gotten the full fat product. Chick-fil-A, for example, the reason why everybody thinks it's crack is because it's marinated in all kinds of sugar, all of it. I mean, you get those grilled nuggets, that's not healthy either. I mean, if you're looking at sugar, it's not. But again, what are you looking at? If you're looking at those grilled nuggets thinking that that's low fat, then yeah, sure. It really
And
just depends on how you want to eat. I've done plant-based. In fact, my husband is mostly plant-based because he can't have meat products. It actually physically makes his body sick. My daughter has struggled with allergies of all kinds, like eggs and dairy and nuts and shellfish. And the list is long. So at one point I suddenly became an allergy mom. I had never done that before. And I don't have any food restrictions myself, which actually is kind of a problem because I can have everything.
mhm.
So I've tried all kinds of ways of eating, including, nailing and failing different types of diets as well. And for my body, like I can't go plant-based past like 4 weeks of that. I start to feel very deficient. Like I have to have some kind of meat in my body, whether that's red meat or chicken or turkey. I personally just feel better with that. So I think what I've learned is it's about the balance that you want to maintain in your body. I feel amazing when my sugar is very low. And I'm not trying to eradicate sugar from the planet. You can't like eliminate it. In fact, you can't even eliminate it in your body because you know what? Your body is going to make its own. It's going to turn the muscle and the fat into sugar if you really let it get that low. But it's about balancing so that you're not getting those sugar highs and you're not getting that cravings, that you're burning more fat than you are on the sugar side, for me at least. So when we're talking about what's a healthy diet, can you go to fast food and eat that way? Yes, you can. You can go to Chipotle, you can go to Five Guys, you can go to IHOP, you can go to, any diner or steakhouse and be just perfectly fine. In fact, I lost most of my weight dining out, I'd say about 90% of the time. So it can be done.
I'm often reminded of the Subway commercial and
Oh, with
the
Jared.
yes, with
Yeah.
Jared, and the fact that, it wasn't so much that he was eliminating meat from his diet, but he was eating or processed foods because back then a lot of the meats were the processed meats. Now, even, with some of these companies realizing that they're participating in perpetuating either health or illness, they're moving into the space of looking at the ingredients that they're putting into things. And you can go to Subway now and you can get a flatbread sandwich with no meat, or the meat that you do get is fresh meat that's, better than processed meats.
Hmm.
And the thing about, for me, really helping people to understand that a healthy diet and lifestyle, while plant-based is scientifically proven to actually cure some medical conditions, um, you know, I realize you have to meet people where they are. And a lot of times people don't even understand how to make the foods that are good for them. Most people think that making a dish of cabbage, right, is you boil the cabbage until there's nothing left but these strands of cabbage. And it's like you've taken all the nutrient value out of it.
Right.
And we have to spend this time relearning how to cook and how to really bring out not just the nutritional value of foods, but the flavors
Yes.
and the colors. First time I heard somebody say eat the rainbow, I was like, are you talking about gummy bears? Or what are you talking about? Eat the And then it was like, no, like your red peppers and yellow and green, and your cucumbers and squash and your berries, and all of the
Yeah.
and I got gifted a book that's a children's book that actually has a section in it that they're teaching the kids about the different colors of food. And I thought it was so amazing because, here I'm thinking I've learned a lot, right? I looked at some of that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, and that's what that thing is. So how do you actually put in front of your new clients about shifting from the foods that they've been eating, many of which they probably need to leave alone, to shifting to foods that they should be eating, but they know nothing about?
Yeah. A lot of clients start off with this mentality of I'm taking something away from them. You can't be taking my sugar away from me. I need this diet soda every single day.
More
And
than once.
well, right, right. And the fact is, I'm not taking anything away. What outcome are you looking for? Do you want to feel better? Do you want your inflammation down? Do you want to have, better clarity? Do you want to get better sleep? Like, what are the things that you want? Do you want to lose weight? And what are you eating for? And that's really what's so important. And then, when I pose it like that, and then put it on top of it's only for 47 days, right? Because in our program, we go through a process of essentially eliminating sugar, but it's not a total elimination because we're certainly having natural sugar. And as you just heard me say, you need sugar,
Mhm,
a certain
mhm.
amount of it, but it's about, running out of the added sugar and the fake sugars. Like, step away from that for a while, let your body detox. And then let's run out of the rest of the sugar that we've got that day and move on to burning the glucose. But let's get through that quick. And the glucose is what the carbs turn into. So let's eliminate the higher carb foods. And so we step through this process of sugar first, then the high carb foods, and then that's the first week. And then we get into 40 days of fat burning. And we also do an anti-inflammatory diet as well. And we're detoxing from those foods. So it's like dairy and nuts and gluten and corn. Those are the known high inflammatories. Let's give our body a break. So we eat protein and vegetables and fruit every day. And I give them a list. And we're weighing our food. So there's no counting calories. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. It's very, very simple. And when I put that in front of them and they go, okay, like I can find some stuff on this list. Oh, it's only for 47 days. Okay. Like certainly you can do it for 47 days. And if you get into a hard moment, know that you only have so many, weeks left. And then the beauty of this is that we start testing those foods back in. So anything that we've taken away, if you want to even call it that, we've taken it away. I like to say that you chose to step away from it. But anything that you choose to step away from, we're going to test back in and let's see how your body does. Right? Let's see what sensitivities you have. Maybe your body feels so much better, a little bit higher carb, or even having a little bit more sugar in your, regimen. It's okay. It's about finding the balance for yourself and then using that information for maintenance. And so that's why those are the 5 stages that we go through. And if you're in the first 3 stages, then your outcome is you're trying to, detox your body and feel better and lose weight. So if that's your goal, then eat like it. But if your goal is that you want to maintain, or even you're okay gaining a little bit because maybe you do want to eat a high inflammatory food, well, guess what? You're going to gain a couple of pounds, and I do mean a couple of pounds depending on how much you eat, just in inflammation overnight if your body doesn't go, tolerate it very well. And again, that's okay. I mean, you don't want to be carrying that long term because the inflammation is what really feeds the disease, right? The sugar feeds the inflammation feeds disease. And so if you're battling, autoimmune disease and your joints are killing you, then the least amount of inflammation you've got in your body, the better you're going to feel. So let's eat for it. Let's make those choices. And the day that you decide to have a high inflammatory food, you just know what the consequences are going to be. It might be hard getting up the steps that day, but you let it clear from your body and then you're good. So it's about that balance. It's not about taking anything away. It's about, what are you getting? What are you gaining?
I love that. Yes. And just takes me back to, this is a conversation about balancing a mindful lifestyle, which is what you just described, and creating sustainable weight loss and sustainable healthy life. You said a couple of things I think bear repeating, because you were talking about how when you're choosing to step away from some things, and then you get to the point where you can add them back in. I know that one of the doctors in our Just One Thing for Health program just said something, and it was a total revelation to me. But it was so true. It's exactly what you described, and that is that we are our own best experiment.
Oh, yeah.
And, when we do mindful actions like what you've described, we just give ourselves so much more valid information, because we can say, yes, this did this to me. And then that if you're choosing to be back in that, that is your choice. It's okay. What are you going to do with that? Because now you know what the outcomes really can be. And then you said something that I think was profound. Sugar feeds inflammation, and inflammation feeds disease.
Mm-hmm.
And most people just don't know that. They don't hear that. They haven't made a connection to that. So I want to repeat that again. That was so cool, Karen. Sugar feeds inflammation, and inflammation feeds disease. We want to live healthy lives. It means doing the things that don't feed the potential for disease. And there are some foods that actually not only allow for the flow within our body systems, but they also give us the ability to turn off cancer cells. I mean, totally turn them off and watch them disintegrate. And, not feeding sugar, which also feeds into things like cancer. There are foods that actually do the opposite to inspire and maintain a healthy internal ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those food types is cruciferous vegetables. And again, asked me a few years ago, what's cruciferous vegetables? I'd have been there scratching my head saying, I'm not sure. Now I shop for cruciferous vegetables. And there's still some that, again, I don't know what they are, what they do, or how to fix them, how to eat them. I was telling that to somebody, and they were talking about Brussels sprouts. I was like, well, I love Brussels sprouts, roasted and this and that. And she's like, try them shaved over a salad. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. Tried it, love it, got another way to do Brussels sprouts. And for me, growing up, you couldn't pay me to eat Brussels sprouts. And now, but again, talking about the conditioning, talking about what we've learned, what we've decided to choose differently on. And I love that you brought these things in. So thank you for that.
Sure. I mean, the number one thing that we can do is step away from the added sugars and the fake sugars. And I mean, of course, anything that's processed is always going to be um, harder for our body to digest and to really use, because it really has to, kind of filter out the things that our body can't really use, right? And then where do those go? And then that's where we get into the whole toxin situation. But
So
uh,
how do you address someone saying, but it's processed, it's got sesame seeds and it's got, flax seeds and it's got all this stuff in it and it says non-GMO and organic, yet it's processed. And I'm looking at the ingredients and there are 10 words, not two or 10 words that I can't even pronounce, much less hear them and spell them. What do you say to somebody who is in that space with you?
again, what outcomes are you looking for? Because I'll tell you that those things just aren't even an option past, when we get into stage 3, you're literally eating protein, which on our program is meat or fish or eggs, um, and vegetables and fruit. So it's all, I like to call those all, here we go, ready? Here's the quote, one ingredient foods.
Ah, yes,
um,
yes.
and then you can add that processed stuff back in. You can test it out. Let's see how your body really does after you're cleaned out. So I know there is no argument. I don't have to argue with my clients over that. And by the end of the 47 days, they're feeling so good, they're really actually scared. And so was I, to even want to test anything back in because you're feeling so good. You don't want to mess up that balance. But you can't live just on, I mean, you can, but it would be really boring if you're just having, protein and vegetables and fruit and not enjoying some of the other things that this world offers. And then again, it comes down to choices, like how do you want to feel and what do you want your outcomes to be? And if the 10 ingredient food is making you feel good, who am I to tell you not to do it?
And I told you're so right. And that's what I'm talking about, meeting people where they are. But there comes a time where you might be able to say, I didn't necessarily feel bad eating it, but there are other signs that we get. Like you mentioned, sleep. A lot of times we don't equate what we eat to our sleep. We don't equate what we eat to how we go to the bathroom, and then how what we ate comes out of us, if it's, I'm not even going to get into it, but it tells a story. And that's part of what we also have to listen to and look at, to say, I might not have felt bad, but did something change? Like you know, the flow
Mhm.
of the excretions that I've had. Has that changed? What change occurred? Was it something that I did going in that helped, create what's coming out? And a lot of times we don't even look at that kind of stuff. I remember somebody telling me at one point that, and I thought they were nuts, that they looked at every movement that they left in the toilet. And I was like, what for? I mean, it's gone. It's let it go. And then they happen to mention it's telling me a story. I want to make sure that I'm healthy, because if it's doing something that I don't like, I need to be conscious of what I did to create that. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's an amazing way to look at it. And again, we're not taught this stuff.
Right.
Or I'll put it this way, we've been conditioned out of learning this stuff, because I remember a great aunt of mine actually did that. Let me see what it looks like. Don't flush. Like, she's nuts, right? But she had a reason for it. I didn't understand it at the time, but she was actually determining the health of the people that she loved, her kids. We were her kids. There was 6 of us that were always with her on occasion. And, you know, that kind of stuff sticks in your mind, but it comes back because you just think, you know, she's a weirdo until you get to understand there was a reason. Okay. But I'll move off of that subject right now. But I think it's still important for people to realize that there are more than one way. There's more than one way for your body to answer the questions that you spoke about.
Oh yeah, and I think it's layered. I mean, it's such an onion. And you have to start with like what are the top outcomes that you're looking for and then pare it down. And you know, as you go, this journey's never over and you're always learning more. And you know, you talked earlier about, you know, the conditions and we were never taught to eat right. Well, I think the truth is that we were taught to eat whatever right was at that time. And we keep learning, you know, more and more, and the manufacturers have a lot more marketing savvy and the way that they're putting together food and how they're driving sales, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
one of
the
the things that
bliss
we talk
point.
about all the time is breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Yeah, because Kellogg's wanted it to be a marketing thing in 1944, not because that's
Exactly.
real. You know, you know, when the pedometers first started coming out, it was a Japanese company that first, you know, hit the American market anyway. And they were like, we're not, how are we going to sell more of these? Oh, let's tell everybody 10,000 steps is what you need to track because that's too many to track on your own. Marketing, it has nothing to do with our health.
You're absolutely right. It reminds me of the bliss point and
Yeah.
the big food companies, the 10 big food companies did a study, scientific study about what food combinations could they make that would create addictive behavior so that people would come back and buy over and over and over again. And they actually called it the bliss point. And what happens is that there's a certain hormone that gets produced in the brain, dopamine, that is heroin like,
Mm-hmm.
that creates this, you know, I've got to have my cheese and milk just tastes so good. I've got to have, you know, 3 glasses of milk a day. And I'm an adult drinking, you know, the milk of a species that is 10 times my size. And, you know, I'm wondering why I've got kidney stones and, you know, gallbladder issues. And, but I need it for calcium for my bones. And that is not true. But we need to do more of the research. We need to take responsibility for our own health and learning this kind of information. So with that said, what is one of the suggestions that you would have for people who are really trying to connect into this kind of information that could lead to better health?
You mean like a resource
Yeah,
they could go?
besides you, because you're an
Yeah.
amazing resource for this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it really starts with us. I mean, I have physically, I would say start looking at the ingredients, like really read the ingredients label. And I'm not talking about the nutrition label. Okay. I have this famous thing of ketchup here. You see, it says no sugar added on it. It says very, very big. But you know what? There's sugar words in this. And when you look at it, it says no added sugar because the FDA doesn't think the sugar words count as real sugar, right? Stuff like sucralose and dextrose. But they actually have the same kind of reaction in your body. It just happens later. It happens like 3 hours later instead of right away, the way that sugar hits it. At least that's the studies that I've been looking at. That's what they've been saying. So from the FDA perspective, you can't just look at the nutrition label like at the top, right? You have to actually look at the ingredients that are down here and really look at the words that that are in it. Like, what are they putting in it? But if you're really looking for a resource, which I think was your original question, um, it's not food related. It's actually mindful related. If you're looking to really connect with yourself, I think this comes back to honoring yourself. And when I was starting this journey, and I mean this food journey, the first book that I started with was The Four Agreements.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Great
It
book. Yes.
by
Don, Don
Don
Ruiz.
Ruiz.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. The other author and researcher that I follow very closely is Brene Brown. And the reason is because she does all of the shame research, and that plays right into, if you're not enough, it feels like shame and guilt, and then it cycles back into keeping everything like a secret, and this cycle going, and you're looking to validate that cycle at like every turn. um, so go look at her first TED Talk and then look at her second TED Talk. That's actually a great place to start because they're only 20 minutes each. So she put herself out there in this first TED Talk and was like super vulnerable and talked about being in therapy and how she didn't want to be there and why. And it was only supposed to be like a couple of weeks and ended up being a year. And then if you watch her second TED Talk, she'll talk about how shameful she felt and vulnerable by putting that stuff out there, and how it went viral. And
Yeah.
this cycle that she went through just by putting it out there, and it really kind of firsthand shows you how powerful that is. And part of us, food plays a part in all of that, whether we're honoring ourselves, whether we are going into like a shame cycle. Food can be a huge part of that. So,
Oh, I love that. Yes. Powerful resources that you've shared. Thank you. So, many of our conversations here on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth show dive into the subject of using food as medicine. Thomas Edison back in the day said that, the doctors of the future will no longer treat illness with medication and pills and surgery, but with food. And the foods that we know are life-giving: whole foods, plant-based foods, spices, root vegetables. You appear to be in just magnificent health. And, I again also believe that you meet people where they are to begin their healthy lifestyle journey. Share with our audience from your experience, what are a couple of the best lifestyle related things that you do? You mentioned meditation. Is there something else that keeps you in sustainable great health?
water, water, and more water. In fact, I get up in the morning and I don't recommend this for everybody, but I feel so strongly about water that I chug at least 3 16-ounce glasses every morning before I do anything else. I'm not allowed to have any more, any tea. I don't reward myself with anything else like caffeine until I've gotten at least half my water in for the day. I try to drink at least 90 ounces at my current weight. I love the calculation where you take your weight, you divide it in half, and then you call that ounces. But on our program, we don't recommend anyone drink more than a gallon unless you're doing some kind of like real physical work where you need more than that. But so if you're heavier than 240, just stop at a gallon. So yeah, water is one of the biggest things that I have been doing now for years, and I can feel it when I don't have it. Like,
Uh-huh.
if I
Okay.
try to short on that, I am really shorting my day and my energy.
I
Um,
love it. I love
yeah.
it. Yeah.
The other thing again, I can't talk about it enough, meditation and really getting in and centering myself at that cellular level and releasing what I need to release through that, and bringing in, maybe more importantly, like bringing in what I need to feel, like bring in the energy that I want. And feel the outcomes that I want at that level. And then I'd say the last one, we've been talking about it, of course, is sugar management. If my sugar gets too high, like I'm out of whack. If I get back into a sugar level where I'm craving and I'm getting into that short sustainability cycle of energy, that's just no good for me. Now I know people that can have, way more sugar than I can and be just fine, or at least as we were talking about, right, like appear to be just fine. So everybody's body is different. I don't even think you can put a number on it. Like I know the doctors, there's standards out there, but from what I've seen, there it really isn't. Like your sugar balance, your carb balance, your protein balance, how many vegetables you get in, your fruit, like all of that is very personalized.
I agree. There's a term that I learned called bioindividuality,
Mm.
and it speaks to just that. Just like our fingerprints are different, we are different internally, meaning that we really have to take care of ourselves when it comes to understanding what's good for us, and on the contrary, what's not so good for us. So, Karen, tell us, I'm curious to know, what's your favorite healthy meal? Breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Well, we don't do breakfast on Scale the Limit. I'll tell you that we are big about brunch.
Okay.
It's about brunch and it's about dinner. And even in maintenance, I really love the intermittent fasting and the benefits of the intermittent fasting. So I typically eat twice a day. If it's an odd day, I might eat one bigger meal once. But I know you asked this question ahead of time, and I've been like, kind of like, there's a few different things that I love, but I love a good steak dinner. I'll tell you that, with like some broccoli that's just steamed, like you were talking about, right? You don't want all the nutrients to be out of it, so it's a sort of crisp, but just soft enough that I'm not like chewing forever.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then strawberries are one of my favorite berries.
Ah, and
And if you
see,
want to get real fancy about it, freeze the strawberries and then put them in the blender and make some sorbet.
I love that. I love that. And one of the things that you described, again, something that I had to learn, is that there are certain vegetables that counteract the negative carcinogenic properties in meat. And that's cruciferous vegetables, of which broccoli is one.
Mhm.
And then your berries. There's something in the berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. There's something in berries that actually does the same. So that might be one of the reasons why for you, it's such a great combination of the things that you enjoy, you love and enjoy. I love that.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'm also
Karen,
not having like steak as big as my head, you know?
oh, that makes a difference, huh?
It does.
Oh, you're too funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, on that note, as we are actually bringing our conversation to a close, Karen, is there some wisdom that you believe is important to share in the short time that we have together? Something that you want to leave with our audience to have a positive impact on them going forward?
I think, everybody has the power to choose, and you can either let that choice happen to you or you can make that choice for you. And you can be intentional about it. But either way, you're still making the choice.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. And that's, just a great segue back into what I was saying about how it is that we can take responsibility for our own health and well-being. And it starts with the choice to see better. When we see better and know better, we do better. And when it comes to what it is that you're eating and how it is that you're eating, this is the information that will get you there. So I want to wrap up by letting people know that you have gifted everyone with something. Tell us what that is. Is it like a cookbook? Or
Well,
you've gifted us with an
I have brought
opportunity.
it into the world. This is
You have
not like Oprah where you get a car and you get a car and you get a car.
brought us an opportunity to get something that you have
Yeah.
nicely said, birthed into the world. And that's
Yeah.
the gift of being able to find out more about the cookbook.
Yeah, thank you so much for that opportunity. If you're not sure where to get started with sugar, or you're just looking to continue your no sugar added journey, and you want a variety of recipes, and you'd like some inspiration to go with that, we have birthed into the world. We've got 16 stories of women that have kicked sugar to the curb, and then we've got over 95 recipes in this book, and you can get it at scalethelimit.com/cookbook, or you can find it in the menu just at scalethelimit.com. And I would love for you to, share that with your world, because if there's one thing that I'm super passionate about is showing everyone where that sugar hides and how can you enjoy really great food without it. Because again, I'm not taking it away, you're actually getting something out of it. If there's anything I'm taking away, it's your inflammation.
Awesome, awesome. And we'll be sharing the link as well. One of the things that we do love for our audience to do and to know is who's got the information and how you can get it. So we'll be sharing that link as well. And, as we wrap up, please go to the bottom, add in the comments. What was your biggest takeaway? Did you learn something new? Let us know. And if you're a health, wisdom, or wealth practitioner and you'd like to share your knowledge and expertise with our audience to be in this kind of conversation, reach out to me. DM me, message me on Facebook, Messenger, LinkedIn, email me at vlen@p3academy.com. Let's connect. All right, everyone, we've got some exciting things coming in future episodes and more. So stay tuned, turn on your notifications, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please do us the favor of sharing. Help us to get the message out, because there's so many people who are looking for us, and you can help them to find this information. So until next time, be well. Live, love, be a bigger positive impact in your world. I'm Velen Hawkins, your host, with our guest Karen Q, and we're going to sign off for now and say bye. See you next time.
Bye.